Hello everyone, this is a little bit of a different video because we didn't get to do a live stream this Wednesday, and we thought we'd put out a video where we still answered your questions, and so we have some here. These were questions we asked for in the last live stream. I said put some in the comments section below and hopefully we'll be able to answer them either the week after or the week after. So this happens to be the week after the live stream. So what do we have?
Well, question number 1, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, this question is from Lakeisha. She asks, what is the most expensive fish that you have ever owned? I know it's not one of my fish because I have not owned
It's definitely not one of your fish. So I guess there's two ways to look at this. Way number one is the most expensive single fish I ever bought. Well, it wasn't even really a single fish, but I went to the Chicago Live Bearer Society Rare Fish Auction, and I bid on a pair of Scyphia multipunctata. It is a type of goodyear, and I was really excited about these fish because I figured, wow, I'm going to breed them. The goodyears, a lot of them are cool, but they don't often have a lot of nice color. These ones did. So I spent a couple $100 on this pair of fish with the intent to breed them. And as luck would have it, within about 3 or 4 days, the male never made it out of quarantine. The female lived a long and happy life in a 29-gallon with some Cryptoheris nanaluteus, but the male we lost right away. And so that's always the fear, is when you do that, sometimes you lose fish. Now there's a second way to answer this question. Do you know, if you had to guess, what the most expensive fish is in our fish room right now? Like if we had to sell all of our fish, which one would probably be the most expensive?
The green neons?
Not the green neons, but that was a great guess.
Okay, I'm going to guess our flagship fish?
The flagship fish, which is?
Geophagus?
Yes, our Geophagus altifrons. In my opinion and estimation, if we were placing values on our fish, it's a full-grown Geophagus altifrons, which they take a long time to look like this. My guesstimation is if you saw one of these in a pet store, depending on the pet store, you could easily spend a couple $100 on that fish. So we don't have anything crazy. It's not like we're running around with $500 or $1,000 single fish. It's just not how we really roll with our fish room. But that is our most expensive fish. Okay, what's the next one?
All right. Question number 2 is from Bria. She would like to know, can you put a firemouth in a planted tank?
It's a good question. So a firemouth, for those of you who don't know, it's a smallish cichlid, New World cichlid. I guess it would depend on how you define planted tank. I have had a similar fish. This was Thrictes maculopinus, and they are in previous fish room videos. And I actually had them in tanks with plants. However, they generally won't do well with plants that are in the substrate. Have any idea why that is?
Well, I'm thinking that they like to dig around.
They do. They like to dig little pits, especially the males when it's getting time to breed. And so they are going to dig, which means they're going to uproot a lot of your crypts, your jungle val, your sword plants. However, that being said, I think we did have some jungle val growing like towards the back where they really couldn't dig because there were rocks and wood in the way. You could certainly consider gluing anubias to rocks and wood, something you've shown how to do on your channel, the small scape. Possibly some floating hornwort. But that's probably as far as I would take it. And I would also say with your firemouth cichlid, start slow, see if they start ripping plants off the wood just because they're cichlids and they think that would be a great thing to do in their territory. And if it works, you could add a little bit more, but I would stay away from the plants that are planted. What else you got?
All right, question number 3 from Kevin and Lisa. This is a good question. Do mystery snails eat their babies?
Do mystery snails eat their babies? We have bred a lot of mystery snails. I haven't seen that happen. I think the question that they asked when we looked at the question, because it was a longer question, they had given some background and said, they see the mystery snails and they're rasping on all the different surfaces. And of course, the tiny little baby mystery snails are going to be fairly small. Could it potentially lead to the larger mystery snails, the adults, just kind of accidentally eating the babies?
Oops.
Oops, yeah, oops. So the answer is, I haven't seen that happen. And even if it did happen, it probably happens in a small enough number where you're probably not going to notice, because mystery snails tend to have a lot of offspring. Even in a single egg clutch, you can easily get 30, 40, 50 little babies. So if that were to happen, let's just say by accident, and again, I have never seen it happen, it's probably not going to put a serious dent into your mystery snail population.
I should certainly hope that if they noticed that they were eating one of their babies, they would be like, oops, and spit them out.
But again, they're mystery snails, and their brains are not very large.
My wishful thinking. Are you ready for question number 4?
I'm ready for question number 4.
All right, this one's from John. What do you do with the quarantine tanks in between uses?
This is a great question.
It is.
So, quarantine tanks. We have at least 15 that we use right now, probably more. Maybe closer to 20 out of the 80 tanks we use are for quarantine or grow out. And a lot of times, we pull the fish out. But our tanks, there's 2 things going on. There's 2 ways to look at this with your quarantine tanks. There's one school of thought where you tear everything down, you disinfect it all, and then you restart it when you need it. Generally speaking, what that means is whatever filtration you're going to be using, whether that's a sponge filter or a hang-on back, the media is already cycled so that when you set up the tank again, it's basically ready to go. Because you're really not supposed to be putting a ton of fish in a quarantine tank anyway. The way we do it is a little bit different. What we do is once we remove the fish, we have a couple of different types of organisms in the tank that kind of keep the tanks cycled. One, in a lot of our tanks, we have bristlenose plecos, and they're just kind of eating the algae, and of course we feed them as well. And they're fairly large eaters, and so they're going to keep that tank cycled for us. And the second thing is, in addition to the bristlenose, we also have a fair amount of different types of snails. That might be Malaysian trumpet snails, that is in our case, pond snails, ram's horn snails, mystery snails, and those are also being fed, and they're also going to contribute to ammonia and nitrite and then eventually nitrate. So those are the ways that we keep our tanks going, and it's worked out fairly well for us.
Cool. Question number 5. This is from Juan. What is the fastest way to wash gravel substrate?
That's a good question. I think I'm going to let you answer that one.
Really?
What would be the fastest way you could think of to wash gravel substrate?
Well, my fastest way is to buy it from a fish store, because it comes quite clean. Now, if you're going to go get, say, like pea gravel, and it's really dirty, you're going to save big bucks, but it's going to come really, really dirty. I know your method is to put it in a bucket, and then you just shove the hose, and just have water, run in there a lot.
Well, I do that with sand. I don't necessarily do that with gravel.
You've never done that with pea gravel?
I don't.
Really?
I have a different method. Do you want to hear it? Maybe it's the same as yours.
Well, I have a way that I would come up with in my head, but go ahead.
I use a strainer. So like the kitchen strainers that you would use for noodles, I'm going to make my pasta today, and you dump your noodles in there and you shake out all the water. I put the gravel in there, run the water over, kind of mix it around with my hand, and usually whatever's in the gravel, any dust, dirt, grime would probably just travel right through the strainer, and then from the strainer, the gravel goes right into the tank.
Sure, but what happens if you have a lot of substrate?
That means I'm going to be making a lot of trips back and forth from the sink with my strainer to the tank itself.
See, what I would do is to elevate a sheet of screen above, say, 4 or 5 rocks, and then run the water over it. So it's a thin layer of gravel over a big surface, and then you're just hosing it off. That's what I would try.
Okay, that's a good way.
If you have screen material just sitting around.
By the strainer, either way, you'll have clean gravel. So thank you for all of you who participated in our Q&A. Really appreciate it. Again, we'll be back with the live streams after we get back from Aquashella. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.